Boom! Now, in this next episode, Medea is confronted by Jason, and this is the first exchange that we see between them. And the first thing that Jason does is condemn Medea for her stupid attitude, as well as her constant abuse of the royals, which has ensured her exile despite his alleged pleas for her continued stay in Corinth. Now, he also says that he wants to help her and their children, despite what she thinks, but she berates him as an unspeakable wretch. She then goes on to list all the reasons why he has wronged her and everything she has done for him, and these reasons include helping him attain the Golden Fleece, betraying her own father, going to Iolcus with him, killing King Peleus, and even giving him children, only to have him turn his back on them. Now, similarly, Medea states that if they had no sons, she could conceivably forgive him for wanting a new wife, but apparently this was the deal breaker. This makes him an unfeeling monster. Is that really the reason, though? Now, she also reminds him of the value of his oaths, which again, the breaking thereof elicits the wrath of the gods. Now, Jason attempts to explain why none of this is the case. While he agrees that Medea's assistance was of some benefit, he attributes his success instead to the Cyprian, which is Aphrodite. Now, remember, in the background info that I went through, the research and mythology suggests that Aphrodite was the one that caused Medea to fall in love with Jason. But Jason debunks this notion, saying that it would be invidious to recount how love, with his inescapable arrows, compelled you to save my life. Now, if you're wondering why he says he, if we're talking about Aphrodite, it's because it would most likely be an allusion to Eros, who is a god of love and the son of Aphrodite. Now, Jason also says that Medea actually had more to gain than he did. Apparently, he liberated her from the uncivilized country of Colchis, and instead she came to know justice and the use of law, instead of being subject to force. So there's an interesting dichotomy here in that Colchis is perceived to be an unrefined or inferior country, whereas Corinth is comparatively more cultured and intelligent and superior. Now, additionally, Jason also says that by relocating, Medea's special gifts became known to all Greeks and won her renown. So her reputation has actually benefited from being associated with Jason. Now, because of this, Jason says that he's been a true friend to her. And although Medea responds angrily, Jason continues to explain why he is remarried. Now, characterizing himself as a man with no country of his own, Jason explains that when he left Iolcus, he perceived a marriage with Medea to be a stroke of luck, because she was a king's daughter and would so grant him a connection to royalty. Now, similarly, the reason he has remarried is not because he has fallen hopelessly in love with a new bride, but because he wanted to ensure his prosperity by producing royal brothers for his current sons so that they would be on equal footing, and so he could raise them in a manner worthy of his name and legacy. Now, according to Jason, the only reason that Medea can't see this logically is because she is embittered by jealousy. And it is here that Jason even goes so far as to condemn all womankind, claiming that when women encounter misfortune in love, they take all that is good and beautiful in life and turn it into grounds for bitter hatred. And similarly, if childbearing were not dependent on females, then it would rid the world of all its troubles. Which is pretty savage. Now, the course leader admits that Jason's arguments were skillfully worded, however, he has still behaved unjustly. Now, interestingly, Medea says that the criminal with a gift for speaking deserves the worst of punishments, which is ironic because already we have seen Medea's manipulation of others, so she too has a gift for speaking. So does she not also deserve the worst of punishments? Anyway, Medea says that if Jason really had their best interests at heart, then he would have shared his plan with her, which is, fair enough. Jason's reply is that he was expecting her to react angrily, and that's why he didn't share it with her. He also says that this fate of hers, her exile, he says, this was of your own choosing, which highlights how Jason at least thinks that Medea is solely responsible for her own misfortune. Now, he also adds that if she needs money or a place to crash, he'll call up his boys and he'll hook her up, but Medea refuses, and she even states that gifts from wicked people bring only harm. Which is also very ironic if you consider how Medea commits murder via certain gifts later in the play. Anyway, Jason calls on the gods to witness that apparently he's doing his part, his due diligence, and then he takes off. Now, before the end of this episode, the chorus warns of the dangers of excess passion, saying that when passions come upon men in strength beyond due measure, their gift is neither one of glory nor of greatness. So yeah, excess passion basically has no positive results. The chorus also fears being given that same excessive passion, which is from the Cyprian's bow, poisoned with desire. And this is interesting because this could conceivably be an instance where the chorus is actually assigning blame to the gods, or specifically the Cyprian, Aphrodite, and or her son Eros, for making Medea and Jason fall in love when they were strangers. Because look at the result, they were both exiled, which apparently is the most piteous of sorrows and a misery beyond all others. Okay, next episode. Aegeus, elderly king of Athens, is passing through Corinth on his way to Troezen, and he encounters Medea. Now, he explains that he is on his way to meet Pythias of Troezen in the hope to decipher an oracle that pertains to his ability to bear children, because this is something Aegeus wants, but has not been able to do. Prob's just shooting blanks, mate. Now, Medea sympathizes with his plight, and then when asked by Aegeus why she looks so depressed, she explains her circumstances. The lousy husband who's remarried, that she's done nothing wrong, and that she's been banished. Now, Aegeus sympathizes with her, and at this point, Medea assumes a position of helplessness in front of him, which also harks back to her encounter with Creon, where she makes herself look defenseless and weak in order to garner sympathy. Now, she even says, "Pity me, pity this luckless woman," and she offers him a deal. If he grants her sanctuary in Athens, then in return she will put a stop to his childlessness. Now, Aegeus agrees, but Medea needs a little more. She wants assurance. She wants it to be stated before the gods so that it becomes an oath. And again, we know that oaths have great value. Now, Aegeus agrees. He swears by the earth and the sun as per Medea's request, and then Medea prompts him to acknowledge the punishment for breaking an oath, which is the fate awaiting mortals who offend against the gods. Now, Medea blesses Aegeus, and the chorus leader also praises Aegeus' noble heart, and then he departs. Now, it is at this point, and this point only, when Medea has been granted sanctuary and protection from Aegeus, that she finally reveals the full extent of her vindictive plans, which is that she will manipulate Jason, kill his new wife Glaus, and use her children to do so, and then she will kill her own children in an attempt to destroy Jason's house, and that is his legacy. Now, she also says that she will take the children after she has killed them and then flee in order to escape the charges of prolacide, which is the killing of one's children, as well as regicide, which is the killing of a royal person. Now, there are a couple insights here that we need to take note of. The first is that Medea prefaces this by saying, "It makes me groan to think what deed I must do next." Now, this is in relation to killing her children. Now, this implies that in her mind, she does not necessarily want to do this, but it's something that she has to do, she must do. She doesn't think that she has a choice because this is the only way to punish Jason. Now, everything he did was in the pursuit of royalty, to build the esteem and the value of his house and his legacy. So Medea wants to destroy that house, destroy that legacy, and the children is simply a means to do that. Now, the second thing, or the second reason that Medea believes she has no choice in this matter, in these killings, is because even though this murder is abominable indeed, she knows that to suffer the mockery of her enemies is something she will not tolerate. Now, earlier, Jason said that Medea has won renown, and Creon was an example of someone who feared Medea because he knew her to be a sorceress with dark knowledge. And here, it's evident that Medea very much wants to keep that reputation intact. She quite explicitly states, "Let no one think me a weak and feeble woman, but rather an enemy to be feared, because these are the people who achieve true fame." Now, the third and final detail here is that after hearing this plan, the chorus sort of starts to lose some of its sympathy for Medea, and the loyalty slightly shifts. Now, the chorus leader, in response to this, says, "Please do not do this thing," as it means that she would have to break mankind's laws. And that's another interesting specification, the fact that it's mankind's laws and not the laws of the gods. But that's something we'll come back to a little bit later. Now, anyway, at this point, Medea turns to the nurse and instructs her to fetch Jason while keeping her plans a secret. Now, the chorus then descends into a song about Athens, specifically how it's a city of sacred streams, or the lands are hospitable to friends. But then, with this image in mind, the chorus wonders that if Medea acts on these vile intentions, how would such a place provide Medea with a suitable home, as she would hence become an unholy one who has killed her own children. Now, the chorus even seems to doubt whether or not Medea is capable of prolacide. But before they get a response from Medea, Jason enters the scene. Now here, everything is set into motion, and Medea's plan starts to become realized. Medea asks for Jason's forgiveness and agrees that he did have everyone's best interests at heart. But this is, of course, a ploy. A particular interesting thing she says, though, is, We are what nature made us. I will not say creatures of wickedness, but women. As if the two things are different. However, we know that this is not how Medea really feels, because a little earlier she was saying that women can surpass any master craftsman in evil. This is just an example of how a lot of the time when she's speaking to others, that manipulation is most evident in the contradictions that she makes. She's often saying the opposite thing to what she said earlier when she was in confidence. Now anyway, the children enter soon after, and upon embracing them, Medea cries, while the chorus leader is affected by the sight of Medea's tears and hopes that this trouble may not proceed to greater lengths. It is implied that Medea's tears are forced. They are for sure, and this is implied by the stage direction when she embraces the children, which is memory of Jason's treachery stirs in her again. Now Jason, however, seems to be similarly fooled and approves of Medea's change of heart. He even calls it the superior way of thinking. Now Medea continues her emotional manipulation and asks that Jason convince Creon to waive banishment for the children. Now when Jason becomes skeptic, Medea suggests the idea of getting Glaus to try and convince Creon instead. And as a token of appreciation, Medea will give Glaus some bridal gifts. Now Jason agrees, and then Medea has a servant bring her the bridal gifts, which are a dress and a coronet. And these are of course poisoned, but no one else knows that. Now she gives the gifts to the children and instructs them to give the gifts to Glaus and to ensure that she receives them in her own hands, because this is how the poison will work. But again, obviously, no one knows that. Now also, just as a side note, this is clearly why she needed the children's banishment to be waived, because they were a means of administering the poison to kill Glaus. Anyway, at this point, Jason leaves with the children.